Jade Rivera's trained eye caught the flaw in the diamond immediately, an inclusion nearly invisible to the untrained observer but fatal to the gem's value. She made a note on her evaluation form, knowing her honest assessment would disappoint the seller, but upholding the standard of integrity that had made her one of New York's most respected gemologists at only 32. Ms. Rivera, her assistant called from the doorway of her office at Luminous Appraisals. Your fiancé is here to take you to lunch. Jade smiled, carefully returning the flawed diamond to its velvet case. Marcus Harrington always looked slightly out of place in her world of precision instruments and specialized lighting. His tailored suits and confident stride more suited to the steel and glass investment firm, where he managed portfolios for the city's elite. But that contrast had always delighted her, his world of high finance complementing her realm of geological treasures. Sorry I'm early, Marcus said, kissing her cheek as she removed her jeweler's loupe. Meeting finished sooner than expected. Just let me wash these chemicals off my hands, she replied, noticing how his eyes darted to his phone when it chimed with a notification. Something in his expression, a momentary tightness around his mouth, triggered a flicker of unease she couldn't quite place. At the upscale bistro where they'd been meeting for Thursday lunches since their engagement 6 months ago, Marcus seemed distracted, checking his phone frequently and offering only perfunctory responses to her updates about their upcoming engagement party. Is everything all right at work? She finally asked, reaching across the table to touch his hand. His fingers tensed slightly under hers. Just the Kingston portfolio. Nothing to worry about. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Another imperfection Jade's observant nature couldn't miss. Actually, would you mind if we cut lunch short? I should probably handle this before it becomes an actual problem. Of course, she said, ignoring the hollow feeling in her stomach. Should we still meet at the venue tonight to finalize the engagement party details? Absolutely, he assured her, already signaling for the check. 7 o'clock. I wouldn't miss it, but he did miss it. At 7:45, Jade sat alone in the private dining room of La Perle, the restaurant where Marcus had proposed, surrounded by sample centerpieces and menu options. Her calls went straight to voicemail, his texts unanswered until 8:30 when a brief message appeared. Emergency with the Kingston account. So sorry, can you handle the details? I trust your judgment completely. Trust. The word hung in her mind like a suspended particle in a gem, a potential flaw depending on how the light hit it. Later that night, as Marcus slept beside her, Jade reached for his phone on the nightstand. She only wanted to show him a photo of the centerpiece she'd selected. At least that's what she told herself. His password was her birth date, a detail that had once seemed romantically significant but now felt merely convenient. She opened his photo gallery, searching for a recent picture they'd taken together to compare with the centerpiece colors. Instead, she found herself staring at images that cracked her world along its fault lines. Marcus and Veronica Chen, her friend and fellow gemologist, in positions that left no ambiguity about the nature of their relationship. The timestamps showed the most recent had been taken during the Kingston emergency. Jade's fingers turned ice cold as she scrolled through messages between them. Plans carefully scheduled around her appraisal appointments, jokes about her obliviousness, and most devastatingly, discussions about how and when Marcus would end their engagement after securing the crucial Haverford account through Jade's family connections in the jewelry world. Once the Haverford deal closes next month, I'll break it off at the engagement party, Marcus had written. The timing works perfectly since you'll be back from your conference by then. Jade will probably make a scene, but she'll get over it. She's always been practical. Practical. The word burned like acid. Years of studying geological formations had taught Jade that pressure created either destruction or diamonds. As she carefully returned the phone exactly as she had found it, a cold clarity crystallized within her. Marcus expected tears, hysteria, perhaps a public confrontation. He was prepared for those reactions. What he wasn't prepared for was the methodical mind of a woman who could discern value from worthlessness with a single practiced glance. As Marcus's breathing remained deep and even beside her, Jade stared at the ceiling, her mind cataloging and classifying facts like specimens in a laboratory. 6 years together, 3 years of building a home, the joint accounts, her family connections he'd leveraged for his career, the Haverford account worth millions that hinged on her expertise and reputation. By morning, Jade had made her decision. She wouldn't confront him, not yet. She kissed him goodbye as he left for work, her smile perfectly in place, her voice steady as she reminded him about dinner with her parents that weekend. Only after the door closed behind him did she sit at their kitchen island, open her leather-bound notebook, and begin to outline her approach with the same precision she applied to evaluating complex gemstones. At the top of the page, she wrote a single sentence. The most valuable gems are those that reveal their true brilliance only under the perfect light. Jade's gemologist training had taught her that patience was essential. Rushing an evaluation could miss crucial details that determined a stone's true value. She applied this same methodical approach to her current situation, carefully documenting every aspect of Marcus's betrayal while maintaining a flawless facade. The morning after discovering his infidelity, she accessed their shared cloud storage from her office computer at Luminous Appraisals. With steady hands, she downloaded copies of all their financial records, joint investments, and correspondence related to the Haverford account, a prestigious jewelry collection worth millions that Marcus's firm was helping to insure and authenticate. You seem distracted today, noted her colleague, Talia, sliding a mug of green tea onto Jade's desk. Just focused, Jade replied, minimizing the screen. The Haverford collection requires absolute precision. What she didn't say was that Marcus had leveraged her family name and professional reputation to secure this account. The Rivera family had been respected jewelers for 3 generations before Jade broke tradition to become a scientific gemologist. The Haverfords trusted the Rivera name, and Marcus had exploited this trust shamelessly. That evening at home, she played her role perfectly, discussing wedding plans over dinner, while surreptitiously monitoring Marcus's increasingly careless behavior. He took calls in the bathroom, left earlier for work, returned with the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his collar. I've been thinking, she said casually as they prepared for bed. Maybe we should update our financial arrangements before the wedding. My grandmother mentioned it might be prudent. Marcus looked up from his phone, momentarily alert. What did you have in mind? Nothing dramatic, she said with a reassuring smile. Just moving some of my inheritance into separate accounts for tax purposes. Grandma Rivera and her old-fashioned ideas about women maintaining financial independence. His shoulders relaxed visibly. That makes sense. Do whatever your grandmother thinks is best. She's a wise woman. The next day, Jade began methodically restructuring her finances. The genuine inheritance from her grandmother, a collection of rare colored diamonds, was moved from their shared safe deposit box to a new one in her name only. She withdrew her personal investments from the joint portfolio Marcus managed, citing tax planning as the reason when their financial advisor called to confirm. Each night, she maintained their normal routine, dinner discussions about the upcoming engagement party, intimate moments that now made her skin crawl, morning kisses that tasted of deception, all while carefully executing each step of her evolving strategy. I bumped into Veronica today, she mentioned casually one evening. She seemed surprised when I mentioned our engagement party. Did you forget to send her invitation? Marcus nearly choked on his wine. Must have been an oversight. I'll make sure she gets one. No need. I gave her all the details, Jade replied, watching his face carefully. She promised to be there, said she wouldn't miss it for the world. The panic that flickered across his features was brief but unmistakable. Later that night, she listened as he made a hushed phone call from the balcony. His urgent whispers carried on the night air. When Jade's family invited them for Sunday dinner, she noticed how Marcus was particularly attentive, complimenting her mother's cooking and engaging her father in conversation about the family's jewelry business. He was especially interested in the upcoming authentication of the Haverford collection, which would now be handled primarily by Jade. These pieces have extraordinary provenance, her father explained, some dating back to European royalty. The authentication process must be impeccable. The Riveras have always been known for their integrity, Marcus said, raising his glass in a toast. It's one of the many reasons I fell in love with Jade. She smiled in response while beneath the table, her fingers traced the outline of the USB drive in her pocket containing evidence of Marcus's plan to use falsified gemological reports to inflate the Haverford collection's insurance value, a scheme she'd discovered while searching his laptop for more information about his affair. That night, she contacted her cousin Miguel, a cybersecurity expert, under the pretense of concerns about identity theft. "I need to know if someone could access my professional authentication software," she explained. "It's probably nothing, but with the Haverford collection, I can't be too careful." Miguel's investigation revealed what she already suspected. Marcus had installed remote access software on her laptop months ago, allowing him to view and potentially alter her gemological reports before they were finalized. In her notebook, Jade added this evidence to her growing collection, organizing it with the same precision she would apply to cataloging a complex gem collection. The affair was merely the surface flaw. Beneath it lay something much more insidious, a systematic plan to exploit her professional reputation for financial gain. By the end of the week, she had created secure copies of all evidence and placed them with 3 separate trusted individuals: her grandmother, Miguel, and her former professor at the Gemological Institute. Each held a piece of the puzzle to be revealed only if necessary. As the engagement party approached, Marcus became increasingly agitated, working late and growing distant. Jade recognized the signs he was preparing for the public dissolution of their relationship while ensuring the Haverford deal remained secure. What he didn't know was that Jade had already spoken privately with Elizabeth Haverford herself, ostensibly about authentication procedures but actually laying groundwork for what would come next. The elderly collector had listened intently to Jade's carefully worded concerns about ensuring proper protocols, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "My dear," Mrs. Haverford had said as their meeting concluded, "your grandfather once told my husband that the true value of a gem lies not in its flawlessness, but in its authenticity. I've always remembered that." Jade had nodded, understanding the subtext. "The Riveras have always believed in revealing true value, Mrs. Haverford, even when the truth is uncomfortable." That evening, as Marcus slept beside her, Jade finalized the last details of her plan. The engagement party was 3 days away, the very event where Marcus intended to humiliate her after securing the Haverford contract. Her fingers traced the outline of her engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond whose clarity she had once trusted implicitly. Now she knew better. Even the most brilliant stones could conceal fatal flaws. The week before the engagement party transformed Jade into a performer worthy of standing ovations. She selected centerpieces with Marcus's mother, sampled catering options with her own parents, and finalized the guest list with meticulous attention to detail. Each smile was perfectly calibrated, each loving touch precisely timed. "You seem unusually calm," her mother observed as they finalized the seating arrangements at the family's jewelry store after hours. "I was a nervous wreck before my engagement celebration." Jade arranged name cards on the mock-up of the reception hall layout, paying special attention to the placement of key players in her orchestration. "I'm just focused on making sure everything is perfect," she replied, positioning Veronica's name at table 1, directly across from Elizabeth Haverford and the firm's senior partners. "Marcus is a lucky man," her father said, squeezing her shoulder affectionately. "Though I admit I'm surprised by how involved he's been with the Haverford authentication process. Usually the financial side doesn't concern themselves with the technical details." Jade carefully kept her expression neutral. "He's just being thorough. The Haverford collection represents a significant investment for his firm." What she didn't mention was how she'd discovered Marcus had been secretly photographing her preliminary authentication reports and sharing them with a contact who specialized in creating high-quality replicas. The scheme was becoming clear. Authenticate the genuine articles, create flawless replicas, then gradually substitute the fakes while liquidating the originals through black market channels. The insurance fraud alone would be worth millions. That evening, Jade made a final visit to Luminous Appraisals after hours, using her security credentials to access the lab where the Haverford pieces were stored. With gloved hands and a micro camera, she documented each item's distinctive identifying characteristics, inclusions, and microscopic markings that would definitively distinguish the originals from even the most sophisticated replicas. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Working late." "Don't wait up," she smiled grimly at the predictable lie. According to the tracking app she'd discreetly installed on his phone, turnabout seemed only fair. He was currently at Veronica's apartment in Brooklyn. The next morning, Jade visited her grandmother, the family matriarch who had taught her to recognize the value in what others overlooked. At 82, Sofia Rivera remained sharp-eyed and formidable, receiving Jade in her sunlit sitting room surrounded by photographs documenting 3 generations of Rivera jewelers. "You've made your decision then?" Sofia asked, serving tea in antique cups that had survived revolutions and relocations from the family's original home in Colombia. "Yes," Jade confirmed, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "If anything happens to me or if the situation becomes complicated, this contains everything you need to protect our family name." Sofia didn't open the envelope, merely tucked it into her desk drawer. "And you're certain about this approach? It's not too late to walk away quietly. They've stolen more than my relationship, Abuela. They're planning to exploit our family's reputation. Everything you and Abuelo built." Jade's voice remained steady. Her resolve crystallized like carbon under pressure. "Some betrayals require more than just walking away." Sofia studied her granddaughter with knowing eyes. "Your grandfather always said you were born with the eye, the ability to see what others miss. It seems you see clearly now." 2 days before the engagement party, Marcus became unexpectedly attentive, bringing Jade breakfast in bed and suggesting they take the afternoon off to visit their wedding venue. She nodded to Miguel, who distributed sealed folders to key individuals, the senior partners at Marcus's firm, the Haverford family representatives, and her own parents. "You'll find notarized documentation of everything I've presented, along with sworn statements from technical experts verifying the authenticity of the evidence," Jade explained. "You'll also find my resignation from any involvement with the Haverford authentication process, as I can no longer in good conscience be associated with this project under its current management." The room had gone deathly silent. Marcus stood frozen, his carefully constructed world disintegrating around him. Veronica had already slipped out a side door, abandoning him to face the consequences alone. Jade removed her engagement ring and placed it on the podium. "In gemology, we have a term for a stone that appears valuable but lacks structural integrity. We call it fatally flawed." Her eyes met Marcus's across the room. No skilled jeweler would ever attempt to build something lasting around such a stone. With quiet dignity, she stepped away from the podium and walked toward the exit, pausing only briefly beside Elizabeth Haverford. "I'm so sorry about this," she said softly to the elderly collector. Mrs. Haverford squeezed her hand. "My dear, never apologize for revealing truth. That's the Rivera legacy, after all." As Jade reached the doors, the shocked silence gave way to erupting chaos behind her. Demands for explanations, legal threats, the beginning of Marcus's professional implosion, but she didn't look back. Outside in the garden, the night air felt cleansing against her skin. She had known that executing her plan meant sacrificing not just her relationship, but potentially professional connections and even friendships. Yet watching truth slice through deception had been worth the cost. Her grandmother joined her moments later, linking their arms as they walked slowly among the illuminated pathways. "Your grandfather would have been proud," Sofia said simply. "It takes courage to break what isn't working rather than continue polishing a flawed stone." Jade nodded, feeling oddly weightless despite the public confrontation. "What happens next?" "Next," her grandmother replied with a knowing smile, "you rebuild. On a foundation of truth this time." Together they walked toward the waiting car, leaving behind the brilliant lights of the celebration that had transformed into something entirely different than planned. Not an engagement party, but a reclamation of integrity, cut and polished to perfection. "We've both been so busy," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I feel like we should reconnect before all the excitement of the party." Jade recognized the performance, the guilty spouse overcompensating before delivery of the final blow. She played along, walking hand in hand through the botanical garden they'd selected for their never-to-be-held wedding, listening to his suddenly detailed opinions about flower arrangements and menu selections. That night, she allowed him to make love to her one last time, cataloging each familiar touch with scientific detachment, while her body responded with practiced enthusiasm. As he fell asleep afterward, she studied his face. The man she had planned to build a life with, now revealed as a sophisticated counterfeit. The day before the engagement party, Jade met with Elizabeth Haverford for the final authentication of her collection. The elderly collector watched, attentively as Jade demonstrated the proprietary, marking system she'd developed to verify authentic gems even after they'd been removed from their settings. Invisible to the naked eye, Jade explained, showing Mrs. Haverford the specialized light that revealed her microscopic identifier, but definitively proves authenticity in case of dispute. Ingenious, Mrs. Haverford remarked. Does Mr. Harrington know about this system? No, Jade replied with a small smile. Some techniques in our profession are best kept proprietary. That evening, Marcus initiated an unprecedented conversation about their financial future, suggesting they consolidate their accounts for simplicity's sake after the wedding. I've been thinking about what you said regarding your grandmother's concerns, he explained, casually reaching for her phone when a text notification sounded. But I really believe our partnership should be reflected in our finances. Jade gently reclaimed her phone, a message from Miguel confirming the final piece of her plan was in place. Let's discuss it after the party, she suggested. We'll have so much more clarity then. Marcus seemed satisfied with her answer, unaware of the layers of meaning in her response. As she prepared for bed that night, Jade stood before the mirror in the bathroom, studying her reflection with the same objective assessment she would apply to evaluating a complex gem. Tomorrow would change everything. Her fingers traced the engagement ring that now felt like a shackle, a beautiful prison of illusion. She removed it, holding it under the light one final time. Even with her expertise, she had failed to see the flaws in what she'd been offered. But unlike a gemstone, human relationships couldn't be assessed solely under magnification and specialized lighting. They required something science couldn't provide: integrity. Tomorrow, she would demonstrate precisely what happened when someone attempted to pass off a fake in the presence of a true expert. The grand pavilion at the Botanical Gardens glowed with hundreds of twinkling lights, transformed for the engagement celebration Marcus and Jade had planned over the past 6 months. Crystal centerpieces reflected the soft illumination, casting prismatic patterns across the white linen tablecloths. A string quartet played softly as guests arrived in evening wear, congratulating the seemingly happy couple. Jade wore a silk gown the color of rare pink diamonds, her dark hair swept into an elegant updo secured with vintage jeweled pins from her grandmother's collection. Each pin concealed a tiny storage device containing portions of the evidence she had meticulously gathered. You look stunning, Marcus whispered, his hand possessively at the small of her back as they greeted guests. His charcoal suit and confident smile projected the image of a successful man at the pinnacle of his personal and professional life. If he noticed anything unusual in Jade's demeanor, the careful calculation in her eyes, the slight tension in her smile, he gave no indication. He was too focused on the senior partners from his firm and the Haverford family representatives in attendance, all gathered to celebrate both the engagement and the imminent closing of the prestigious account. Veronica arrived fashionably late, wearing a dress that strategically revealed more than it concealed. Her momentary hesitation upon seeing Jade and Marcus together was visible only to those who knew to look for it. I'm so happy for you both, she gushed, embracing Jade with practiced warmth while avoiding Marcus's eyes. This party is absolutely perfect, isn't it? Jade agreed, squeezing Veronica's hands with just enough pressure to convey something beneath the surface. Everything is exactly as it should be. During the first course, Marcus's boss delivered a toast celebrating not only the engagement, but also the successful partnership with the Haverford collection. Thanks to Marcus's vision and the Rivera family's expertise, we're creating something truly remarkable in the investment world, he concluded, raising his glass. Marcus stood to respond, his arm around Jade's shoulders. I couldn't have done it without my beautiful fiancée, he said smoothly. Her expertise and family connections have been invaluable. As the meal progressed, Jade excused herself briefly, making her way to the small anteroom where the evening's surprise awaited. Miguel stood beside a laptop and projector setup, his expression serious. Everything's ready, he confirmed. Are you absolutely sure about this? Jade nodded, her resolve unshakable. Some stones can't be repaired once they're fractured. They can only be recut into something different. When she returned to the main hall, the dessert course was being served. Marcus was deep in conversation with Elizabeth Haverford and seemed momentarily startled when Jade rejoined the table. Having a good time? He asked, his eyes searching hers for any sign of suspicion. The best, she assured him, covering his hand with hers. In fact, I have a surprise for everyone." Before he could respond, she stood and tapped her glass gently, gaining the attention of the assembled guests. The room quieted as she moved to the small podium that had been set up for toasts. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate what was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter in our lives," she began, her voice clear and controlled. Marcus's smile faltered slightly at her choice of words. In the audience, Jade's grandmother Sophia straightened in her chair, her expression proud and resolute. "The Rivera family has built its reputation on one principle above all others," Jade continued, "the ability to distinguish authentic value from worthless imitation." She gestured to the screen behind her as Miguel activated the projector. "It's a skill that serves us well in both gemology and in life." The first image appeared, a split screen showing Marcus entering Veronica's apartment building on multiple dates and times, all when he claimed to be working late. Another click revealed their text exchanges, carefully edited to remove the most explicit content while leaving the unmistakable nature of their relationship. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Marcus half rose from his chair, his face flushing with anger, but Elizabeth Haverford's hand on his arm stopped him. "But personal betrayal, while painful, is relatively common," Jade continued, her professional demeanor firmly in place. "Professional fraud involving millions of dollars and multiple parties is considerably more serious." The next slides detailed the scheme Jade had uncovered. Marcus's unauthorized access to her, authentication software, communications with known counterfeiters, and plans to substitute replica gems for the original Haverford pieces. As the Rivera family gemologist, I was unwittingly being positioned as the authenticator for what would have been one of the largest jewelry frauds in recent history, she explained, making eye contact with the stunned Haverford representatives and Marcus's now ashen-faced superiors. Marcus lunged to his feet. "This is absurd. She's making this up because you were planning to publicly end our engagement tonight after securing the Haverford account," Jade finished for him, clicking to reveal his explicit messages to Veronica, outlining exactly that plan. "Fortunately, I discovered your intentions in time to implement additional security measures."